All right, shalom, shalom. I'd like to start off first and foremost by giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Ruach HaKodesh. Double honor to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone who rule and teach well. Peace, love, salutations, and blessings to those that are doing this work in truth and in sincerity. This is your brother Nathan Yala from the GMS Camp Atlanta, coming back at you through the Spirit with another lesson. And I pray and hope this lesson is edifying. Now, I just had a couple of, incidences that happened to me a few days ago, me and my wife. And, it just got me to thinking, because in both of those situations, they were very carnal situations. But, to the best of my ability, I taught my wife to remain spiritual. Don't feed into the carnality. Don't allow yourself to get out, to get angry quickly and all that stuff. Because in the times that we live in, not remaining spiritual can very well cost you your life. All right. Now, I have a couple of stories that, I wanted to tell in regard to, situations that happened to both of us fairly recently. And both of them could have spiraled out of control had they been handled differently. Now, coming into the times that we're in, the way you handle a situation, as I said, can very well cost you your life. So we want to make sure that we're always remaining spiritual in the world that we're living in. Okay, so you want to be spiritually minded. Okay. As a matter of fact, let's just start off with that. All right, so we're going to start off with the book of Romans. That's Romans 8 and 6. And it says, okay, let's start up a little bit. Let's start at verse 5. It says, for they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, but they that are of the Spirit mind the things that are of the Spirit. Okay. Now, why is this important? Because there are going to be fleshful things that are going to happen to you. And of course, we live in this flesh, so you got to tend to the flesh. But there are going to be occasions that happen in situations that are going to take you out of pocket. That's going to take you out of your character. Okay. And it says, for to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Now, when you think about this, a lot of some brothers, teach that, hey, you want to be spiritually, in your day-to-day walk, which is true. You want to make sure you keep your Yahweh Shai, in mind in your everyday life, right? And everything that you do. And that's true on a macro level, but let's look more on a micro level. Okay. Let's look at when you interact with that nigga that was sitting at the cash register. Okay. That nigga that looked at you cross or said something smart to you for no reason. Or that police officer that pulled you over and you're angry about it, or that woman, that nigga woman that just said something rude or disrespectful to you. Okay. These are things that happen to us on our day to day. Okay. And these are things that can very well get you killed. All right. So case in point, the other day, my wife she was at work at her job. Okay. And, a woman came in and she went to the front desk to check in, and they, anybody that goes to the doctor here in the United States know that you got to present that medical card. Okay. And she was on Medicaid, and when she presented her card, right, her medical benefits had been expired. Okay. Or she didn't have any. Right. So they told her that, hey, they can't see her because, of course, these clinics, they need to get their money, and they submit that bill for that check that comes from Medicaid as soon as the person checks in. So as soon as they check in and they confirm that they about to see the doctor, Medicaid get billed. So these little small practices can get their money, right? So if they're not getting their money, they're not seeing you. Sorry, ma'am. There's something wrong with your medical insurance. We can't help you. Slide her card back, right? The nigga woman, because the nigga woman instantly gets out of pocket. What you mean? Starts cursing and throwing up a storm. So I want to speak to your manager. So my wife, she's the head patient advocate at that particular practice. So, she tells me, she comes out, she says, hey, how can I help you guys? And then the first thing they say, who is this bitch? And excuse my French, but I'm just, telling you what happened. So they start going back and forth. And she said, ma'am, well, I'm sorry, I can give you other options, but you can't use this card because they're not covering your insurance. So the lady like, fuck you, bitch, and all this and blah, 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 just going in on her, right? So then finally, she says, okay, she storms out the office. She goes in to her car, and her boyfriend is in her car, man, boyfriend, husband, whatever this man is, right? And they leave out, okay? And the man comes back into the office, and she goes in on her, and then my wife's talking to her, and then talking to the guy, and the guy looks at her, shut the fuck up, bitch, loud as hell, talking to my wife, all right? So then my wife is like, okay, sir, please don't talk to me like that, and could you please leave my office? And she just keeps repeating it in a very soft tone. But, she's scared, but she's not without defense, if you know what I mean. But she's scared, she don't want it. But the whole time she's just like, sir, please leave my office, in a tone. The guy said he pulled up his finger and gestured at her and said, I'm about to go and get my gun. I'm about to come back and shoot everybody. This is literally what he said. Okay. So they went and they called the police, and the guy ended up getting apprehended. All right. Now, the reason why I brought out that story is because if she would have escalated with this guy, he could have, because it's an office full of women. All right. It's not like it's guys that are work there. It's every single position that's there. That office basically is a female covering it, from the office manager to the patient advocates to the doctors to the nurse practitioners, to the front desk. Everybody's female. So this dude could have easily went in there and overpowered them, okay? And to gesture his hand to shoot, or at the very minimum, he could have caused a very bad scene. But because, she didn't get, if you think about, my rib, she's Northern Kingdom, but if you think about the Southern Kingdom women and how they behave, like the woman that actually went to the office was a Southern Kingdom woman. If my rib would have got loud with her, they could have ended up getting into a fist fight. You see what I'm saying? So there's multiple levels of escalation that could have happened just between the interaction of my rib and the initial woman, and my rib and and her boyfriend. Now, the whole keeping calm and keeping cool and collective is a spiritually minded tactic, because you're not feeding the fire of the flesh to keep it burning. What you're actually doing is you're cooling the fire, you see, and you're de-escalating the situation by being spiritually minded, And I know that may not seem like much, but looking into this, right, this precept, Romans 8, it says, for the things, at verse 5 again, it says, for the things after the flesh mind the things of the flesh. You start talking shit, the flesh wants to get hostile. The flesh wants to get violent. The flesh wants to defend itself. The flesh wants to do something about it. Okay? It says, but they that are after the Spirit, the things of the Spirit. Right? And here's the point. For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Because the carnal mind is enmity against God, for it is not subject to the law of power, neither indeed can be. So then they that are in the flesh cannot please Yahweh. You see, so because you're in the flesh and you react in these carnal ways, right, you are subject to the things that are caused by the flesh. So by you not being spiritual, right, you potentially can get a reaction from the flesh, which could harm you, which could harm your flesh, which could harm your physical body, or get you incarcerated or get something taken away from you. You see? And we're living in a time where things can be escalated very, very quickly. Okay? All right? So what is your protection? Your protection is to be spiritual, to be spiritually minded in all things. Now, here's another story that happened. Now, this happened last week. I went to Cirque du Soleil. Okay, I went to Cirque du Soleil with my wife and just as a little treat, because we ain't did nothing in a while. And, we watching the show, and the show was okay. It wasn't like it was in past times, But it was cool. And then we had this Northern Kingdom couple sitting next to us, and they was cool, you know. And we had what looks to be a Southern Kingdom, a Judite couple, you know, sitting next to us. And both of them had, like, the woman had her man with her, and then the Northern Kingdom had looked like they were on a date, right? So we all sitting in the seats. Now, granted, all of us sitting there are in the wrong seat. We come to realize this later on, that all of us are sitting in the wrong seat. We're all one seat further from our seat, okay? But we cool. Nobody's tripping. Everybody is comfortable and happy with the seats that they have, okay? So everybody's cool, right? So we come a little bit past the intermission, right? And the intermission is just about over, and we're about to sit down. Two black chicks walks up, two young nigga women, man, for lack of a better word, right? And they come and they sit. They come to the aisle, and they like, okay, we got seat 6 and a 6 and 7, and I'm sitting in. My wife is sitting in seat 7, and I'm sitting in seat 6. But the whole rest of the row is open, and it's a clear view of the stage. Okay. So the whole rest of the row is open. So the black couple next to me, they looking like, man, because these two young chicks are causing problems. They coming in like, y'all sitting in the wrong. Now, first of all, y'all come in halfway through the show. We already been sitting here the whole time, you know? So I stand up and I tell everybody, I said, hey, everybody, because the Northern Kingdom couple, they getting frustrated because these bitches is really causing the scene. They getting loud. They getting annoying, you know. These are seats. We paid for these. We want the seats we paid for. Okay. So I look at everybody. I say, hey, everybody, listen. They're right. They did pay for these seats, and we paid for our seats. So let's just move into our correct seats real quick and let them have their seats. It's no big deal, right? And everybody looked at me and they smiled and they said, nah, it's no big deal. And all of us just moved into our correct seats because all of us was looking at these chicks like. So then they sat down in their correct seats. I said, we sat down, and literally it was one seat over. Literally one seat to the left, you know, over. That's it. But the rest of the row, which was about 5 or 6 seats, not including theirs, okay, that was still open. So it was about 7 or 8 seats that were still open. You know what I'm saying? That they could have sat in. And the seat that they had was directly next to us. Like y'all were in, we could touch y'all. And beforehand, all of us had like a seat in between us. You see what I'm saying? So we were all comfortable. We was just chilling. And I say that to say, and then eventually what happened was they sat down in their seats. They sat down, they talked about it for a minute, you know, and yada, yada, yada. And then eventually they said to themselves, and then we heard them say, hey, there's seats down in the front and nobody's sitting there. Let's see if we can get those seats. And then they disappeared. And as I'm telling my rib, because my rib was sitting there, you know, as they were complaining, she's sitting there like, you know, she's like, fuck them, you know, we were here. And I said, no. And even the people next to us, they were saying the same thing. Like, they can just sit in those seats. I said, listen, guys, listen. This thing could escalate, you know, to something more. Let's just get them their seats and just sit down and enjoy the rest of the show. This is an easy fix, you know. And I'm like, look, you feed into that. You see what we're getting over there, right? You see what they're bringing, right? So you want to actually feed that? Let's just give them what they need because they did pay for those seats. So they're right. And let's just go ahead and sit down and enjoy the rest of the show, right? So, but imagine the alternative. We wanted to get into an altercation with them. My rib want to fight with them. Now they could potentially get into a fight. 2, then we're in the wrong because if the people come, they're going to say they're in our seats, and then they're going to show their card, and the people are going to say, yeah, you are in their seats. You see what I'm saying? And then we're going to be looking like we're the ones that are wrong, you know? And so there are just so many different variables of things that it could have went wrong. And what's the key factor? Just remain spiritual. You see what I'm saying? Just stay spiritual, because in being spiritual, you alleviate all of those problems because you're not feeding into them. Now, of course, there's some times where you may have to get carnal because the spiritual thing ain't working and you got to show these cats that you're not choir boys. I'm not saying to sit there and get your ass beat. What I'm saying is just avoid confrontation. when it could be, by remaining spiritual. But if there's a time where you have to defend yourself because somebody, they not getting it, hey, then let them then you're gonna have to deal with that, you know. However, most situations can be avoided just by being spiritual, okay? Being slow to anger, okay? Being reasonable, talking with sensibility, minding the tone and inflections in your voice, really having control and rule over your spirit and over your flesh, so that way you don't escalate the situations on your. If a situation get escalated and you ain't got nothing to do with it, you ain't got no control over it. But if you're in the midst of those situations, you have a degree of influence, which means that you could possibly you could be the one to de-escalate something so that you can leave unscathed and unspotted in name and in body. Okay. Oh, that's a good guy right there. And then you physically all right too. You see, they can't say nothing bad about you and they can't do nothing bad to you. And if they do, it's unjustified. You see? All right. So I'm going to grab one more precept and then we're going to go ahead and close it out. I just want to do a lesson on that. All right, let's finish this out with verse 9. It says, but ye are not in the flesh, you see. Us of those that are in the truth, we are not in the flesh, okay, but in the spirit, if so be that the spirit of Yahweh dwell in you. Now, if any man not have the spirit of Yahushua, he is none of us. You see? So this is why it's important for those men that call on the name of Yahweh Shem Yahushua to be spiritual, okay, and move in the spirit, especially in these times. And I know brothers be hearing them damn demons, man. I know brothers be feeling them demons talking and all in the air and all that shit, trying to get a rise out of you, I know brothers feeling the pressure. So this is more time not to give occasion to the flesh, because we know that the powers are out here. Okay, what it says, because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. So we know that these spirits are out here, man. Okay, and they just waiting for you to get out of line so that way they can jump on your ass. Okay, so let's go to 1 Corinthians 2 and 14. And it says, this is 1 Corinthians. I'm going to read it in the KJV and in the NIV. It says 2 and 13, it says, which things also we speak, not in word which man's wisdom teacheth, but which the Holy Spirit teacheth, compares spiritual things with spiritual. You see? So you got to be able to discern a carnal attack. All right. And you counteract a carnal attack with spiritual things. OK. And then if you truly, man of the Lord, you can realize that this is, this carnal attack is really a spiritual attack, too, because that's a fucking demon. OK. That dude got demons on him, and that demon is pressing him to bring that shit out of you, him or her to bring that shit out of you. Okay, or even situations, your car broke down. How are you handling that stuff? Are you handling it spiritually or carnally? Use your job, you're getting into it with your woman. There's many different applications, to remaining spiritual. All right. It says, but the natural man receiveth not the things of the spirit of power, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. You see? So the natural man, the carnal man, he's not gonna, him trying to resolve a situation, in a calm, cool, collective fashion, with most of these people out here is not an actual reasonable solution to the situation. When you look at these people, they want things to get escalated. They want things to get out of control. You see? They want these things to get, so they're not trying to, and see, you being a spiritual man, you have to be able to discern these things and move accordingly. Okay. It's not just, oh, I'm walking around like I'm holier than thou. No, you have to spiritually discern the things that are happening in the world, including carnal things that are happening to you in the world. You have to be in a mind state and a spiritual mind state to realize what's going down right now. We're too far along in this thing for brothers and let's not say brothers, but men in general, if it applies to who it applies, we're too far in this thing, too far in this walk, to be getting taken out by some bullshit, reactional type behavior. All right. When you don't like something, this is why you have to be slow to anger and have patience, which both of those things combined, and have humility, having patience, being able to suffer things, being slow to anger, being able to keep your anger under control so you can really see what's going on. That's a spiritually discerning mind right there. Okay. And being humble, not taking everything as a fucking personal attack on you. All right. And realize that a lot of these things that we go through is for character building, man, to build you up as a man. All right. It says, verse 14, but the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit, for they are foolishness unto him, neither can he know because they are spiritually discerned. So if you got two niggas sitting here arguing with each other, right? Two niggas sitting here fighting with each other. And, all right. And, Salakia, and they just escalating and escalating and escalating. Neither one of them niggas is spiritually discerning anything. Neither one of them is seeing that they're going to a place that could potentially be dangerous for both of them. But a spiritually minded man, and it's not about being a coward, okay? Understand there's a difference between a man being a coward and a man wanting to de-escalate a unnecessary situation, okay? Or to move through a situation that could potentially be dangerous, and how you reacted and responded directly correlated to whether or not that situation was going to be dangerous for you, you see? So that's why you have to be spiritually minded and move according to the Spirit, man. Okay. I'm not trying to be preachy or anything like that. I'm just, telling brothers, hey, coming into the times that we living into, it's two things you got to do. You're going to have to go hard and you're going to have to be spiritual. All right. And I'm saying that to myself too, because, hey, there are times where you get in certain circumstances where you get pissed the hell off, man. You do. You get pissed off. You get angry and you want to make a move. You want to do something about it, but you can't. All right. You have to be that example. Okay. You have to show that, hey, you know what? Right now ain't the time for that. The Lord didn't put the Spirit on us to move like that. All right. And it says, verse 15, it says, but he that is spiritual judges all things, yet he himself is judged of no man. Okay. Because you can't be judged of any man because of how you move. All right, you're innocent in the eyes of men because you can see bad situations, but you're not moving in that negative energy. You're remaining spiritual, you see. So they can't judge how you moving because you're moving according to Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. All right, this is why you're supposed to be unspotted and be a man with no blemish. And how do you get blemishes? By not moving the right way, man. By not doing what you're supposed to do, man. So remaining spiritual. Look, being humble is spiritual. Okay, having integrity is spiritual. Having love is spiritual. Having charity is spiritual. Having dignity is spiritual. Having honor is spiritual. You see what I'm saying? All these things that make up what we know as like valor and honor and all those things are spiritual because you can't see those. Those are things that come from within. You see? And those things are given by Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. You see, hey, but overreacting, getting hostile real quick, that's carnal. Being ignorant, that's carnal. Doing the things that we see Jake do, those things are carnal. All right. So I'm gonna read this in the NIV, and then we're gonna close up. This is verse 13, 1 Corinthians 2:13. It says, this is what we speak, not in words taught us by humans, by human wisdom, but in words that by the Spirit, explaining spiritual spiritual relatives with spiritually taught words. The person without Spirit does not accept things that come from the Spirit of God, but considers them foolishness. So, Hey, and that goes in, it's what we teach in the highways and byways, primarily, these things that we teach, what I'm saying, are considered foolishness, like the whole grape thing, and men can have multiple women thing. That's foolishness to this world, okay? But spiritually, it makes sense. It says, verse 14 again, it says, but the person without the Spirit does not accept the things that come from the Spirit of God, but considers them foolishness and cannot understand them because they are discerned only through the Spirit. Okay? The person with Spirit makes judgment about things, but such person is not subject to merely human judgments, you see? And that's the thing. Because you're not moving in a manner to where you can be judged by these niggas because you're moving right. And that's the same in small micro altercations. They can't sit there and say, oh, this nigga, this dude, this dude, that, because you're not moving like that. You see what I'm saying? Now, you gonna have some wicked jakes that may do some shit like that? Absolutely. But in your day-to-day situations where you come into these skirmishes and altercations with the everyday man, how you interact with them, we've seen situations that can escalate quick. I just gave you 2 examples. We didn't know if those girls at that Cirque du Soleil, well, we did know because they search you, when you come in. But, hey, like that dude could have had a pistol on him. Okay? You don't know what people may be, what they have access to and what they're capable of. All right? Just like when you get pulled over by a cop. The apostles tell us, man, just be spiritual, Hey, how you doing, officer? Here you go. We live in our captivity. Yeah, it makes you mad, but does that still mean you have to misbehave yourself and act an ass? No, because that very well could get you killed. Okay? So, pretty much, that was it. Just, brothers, hey, be spiritual in the times that we're in. And with that, I pray this edifying lesson, giving all praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Shem Yahushai, Bashem Rakal Kadash. Until the next time, I say shalom.